People who left their partner the day of the wedding. What happened? These are Reddit's best answers to that question. My cousin's backyard shotgun wedding. She changed her mind because they got in a fight that morning. My uncle still made a barbecue and it just turned into a typical family hangout. They got married the next weekend anyway. Not a very exciting story. They are still married like 22 years and 3 kids later though, so that's something. What? They still got married the weekend after and they're still together? That sounds like a success. We called it the non-wedding. It was a very small backyard do, and when we showed up, a relative of the groom ushered us out back and whispered that the wedding was off, but they had all this food and to just help ourselves. Apparently, just that morning, the groom found out that the bride banged the stripper at her bachelorette party, but his family said they'd already spent all the money on the party, so they just tell people when they arrived. It was one of the most awkward experiences of my life because the groom just sat dejectedly in a chair while people tried to cheer him up. We ate a little out of obligation and then just got the heck out of there. Surely at this point, and I know you've put a lot of money into a wedding, you just say, it's not worth it, everyone go home. A colleague of my husband's texted him about a week before the wedding, saying something cryptic like, if I'm in Key West on Friday, the wedding isn't happening. So he was clearly having thoughts prior to. But social media showed that the rehearsal dinner happened the night before the wedding and he was there. So we figured he'd gotten over it. We had family in town and weren't planning to attend the wedding anyway, but my husband texted a congratulatory message later on the day of. The guy replied, from Key West. He didn't show for the ceremony. His excuse was that she wouldn't sign the prenup. The reality was that he was already seeing somebody else. Telling guests that you might not be there, or if I'm somewhere else, the wedding's not happening, before the wedding happening, it's just not a good sign, is it? My friend did this like 20-something years ago. She was engaged to a guy from a very well-off family. The wedding was in California, but they were living in Seattle. Very posh, very expensive, but the mother-in-law was always a female dog to her. Right at the beginning of the reception, the mother-in-law came up and said some nasty things to her in whisper, thinking she would just take it again. She lost it. Families got involved and she ended up on a plane back to PNW that night. Her family had already started moving her things out of the apartment that evening. Never spoke to him again. Wow. All because of a mother-in-law to be. That's shocking. My brother went to this engagement party. Everything was great. Nothing out of the ordinary. Wedding comes around 3 months later. He shows up and it's a totally different bride. Same groom, same date, same invite, just new bride with no explanation. Surely everyone at that wedding was either thinking the same thing as you, just shocked and surprised, or knows what has happened and surely is still then shocked and surprised. It's similar to the first one. One of those where you've booked the wedding, you've cancelled it last minute, and you just thought, can someone else come along and get married to me instead? I want to know who this bride is. My cousin Shay did this. There was a sitting area out of the way / out of sight behind a grove of trees at the wedding venue. Her and the bridal party and photographer decided to take the stone path that led behind and around it for some pretty photos. They all walked around the corner to the groom getting a BJ from the best man right as he popped off. What? They didn't notice the group of people standing there in shocked horror because they were a ways down. She kicked him and his family and friends out, and we still had a party afterwards. She met her now husband at the reception. He was the DJ. What the hell? According to him, sex at weddings where the person isn't the future spouse is more common than people realize. Really though? At a wedding? Surely you'd at least wait until afterwards or just do it before, not at the actual wedding itself. That is mental. My sister-in-law called off her wedding 1.5 months out because she was going through a deep depression. It was so tough, but her fiance understood that it wasn't because she didn't want to marry him, it's that she couldn't find any joy in life at that stage, and it was the wrong time to get married. They're still together and have 2 kids now and are very content with life. There we go. A fantastic answer to the question, which makes so much sense. I didn't expect to see something as logical and as nice as this, and it's great to hear that everyone is doing well. Well, I have a worse version of this actually. I had a family member get married and they got pregnant afterwards. Seemed all good. The day of the birth, the dude decided he didn't want to be a father and left to never be seen again. Never even saw the kid. And there we go. Right back down to earth. My wife's family has a story from the early 1900s in which a bride and groom had courted mostly by mail. The day of the wedding, the bride got cold feet. The family was trying to figure out what to do when the bride's sister piped up and said, "I'll marry him." The groom thought about it for a few minutes and decided he was in. The wedding proceeded as if nothing had happened, and they allegedly were married for over 50 years and produced a big, happy family. Sometimes I do think that the olden days were a little bit easier than these days. When I see stuff like this, I mean, what? This would just never happen now. Absolutely incredible. I don't know if this counts, but 6 years ago in March, my fiance and I decided to postpone our wedding. The weekend the wedding would have been, he left me alone to go and spend the weekend with his parents. We lived an hour away from our parents, didn't have cell service or Wi-Fi, no landline. His parents posted all over Facebook that they were celebrating him not getting married to me and were celebrating his new girlfriend, a friend of ours he constantly told me not to worry about. My mum screenshot all the Facebook posts, drove an hour out to where I was and said, "Hey sister, what are we going to do here?" I took a hot shower and cried. Then we packed all of my stuff up and left a letter to him on the dining room table with the ring. Later, he texted me asking, "Is this what you really want?" I replied saying, "Nope, but it's what I need." Great answer. My friend did this. He just turned off his phone and didn't show up at the ceremony. When I asked him about it, he said, "Well, I just woke up that morning and thought to myself, nah, F this." Wow, that takes balls to be fair, but also really on the day. Not me, but bride's best friend decided the wedding was the perfect time to announce that the bride was secretly pregnant. The problem is, the groom was religious and saving himself for marriage, and the bride agreed to it. They hadn't had sex before. It turns out she'd been cheating for most of the relationship because of this. I believe she planned on waiting until after they had sex and telling him the child was his. It turned into a very interesting situation where the groom's parents were very upset, thinking he broke his promise of abstinence to them. The bride's parents were celebrating the pregnancy, and the bride and groom both had looks of absolute horror. Imagine being the best friend there and just causing all this on your best friend's wedding day. Ridiculous. Although, obviously, I don't really blame the bride's best friend. I blame the bride, not just for cheating and getting pregnant with somebody else, but also for telling your best friend as well. Why would you do that? Or at least not telling them to be sworn to secrecy or something like that. Anyway, not me, but I was the best man. Incredibly weird vibes from the very religious family of the bride the whole time. My friend, the groom, is Muslim and black. Her family was always nice to him, but they would say stuff like, "Well, with whoever you end up marrying," to her in front of his face, even after they were engaged. She literally just never showed up. Neither did he nor her entire family, and they never RSVP'd yes. They haven't spoken a word to each other to this day. She married a blonde dude within 6 months and lives in, drumroll please, rural Alabama. Oh no. Please, no. Not the day of, but my mum's first marriage lasted 13 days. He was mentally unstable, locked her up in the apartment, and beat her. She was eventually able to get his mother to rescue her and take her to a shelter. Okay. I don't know if this counts, but my grandma killed her first husband on their wedding day. She was 15, it was arranged, and divorce wasn't an option, so she was like, "Alright, murder it is." What's happened to this episode? I thought we were all going along, having some fun, some funny wedding day stories where things don't go to plan. Now a 15-year-old is murdering her husband-to-be. This has taken a turn for the better, you could argue. My dad left his bride at the altar. It wasn't my mum, it was years before. From what he told me, the relationship was quite toxic and got worse during the wedding preparation. My dad apparently warned her that he was very close to calling everything off. She told him he didn't have the guts to do it. So, when the civil agent asked him if he was willing to take the lady as a spouse, he said, No. Hold that. She, rightfully so I would say, was enraged, and her family tried to beat up my dad, who swiftly left with his best friend. They still got married a few months later on, but got divorced pretty quickly. That is the definition of toxic. Not me, but my best friend. I was set to be his best man at his wedding. While I was organising his bachelor party, I reached out to some of our old friends to invite them. One of them who showed up we hadn't really seen in like 10 years, and asked who he was getting married to, and I told him. And he was just silent for a minute and said, "Bro, I literally just hooked up with her a couple of weeks ago." I thought it was a joke, but he sent me a pic. The hardest freaking conversation I've ever had to have, and it was only like 12 hours before the wedding. Oh my gosh. Well, at least you found out, I suppose. I know of someone who left from the honeymoon. They were in Italy and something happened. She was apparently very scared and slept with her passport hidden under the pillow so he wouldn't take it from her. That was more than 20 years ago and she's moved on. I never did find out what had happened since then. I moved away and lost touch. Sounds like somebody was pretty controlling. I mean, if you're sleeping with your passport under your bed because you're scared of the person next to you, that's pretty terrifying. Anyway, I'm related to a woman who was unfortunately left after the wedding. Dude was marrying her for citizenship or something and just disappeared into the wind a few weeks after they got married. Now, I always wonder with these sort of marriages, surely you can tell at some point along the way, the engagement, just, boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever, that this person or the person you're going to marry is in it for the citizenship and doesn't care about you. Surely. I know love is a powerful thing, but I reckon at some point the mask must have slipped and you must have seen some sort of indication that he doesn't actually love you. He's just in it for the green card or whatever it is. But nonetheless, pretty horrible. I just feel like you've got to be a bit of an idiot for this to happen to you. Maybe I'm being harsh. Let me know in the comments down below. I should have left the day of the wedding, but I did it 40 hours later instead. I'll spare you the long story, but the short of it is that my ex was emotionally and physically abusive the 6 months leading up to the wedding day. We had eloped a year prior and planned a wedding party to celebrate on the 1-year anniversary. My ex got turbo wasted at the rehearsal dinner, refused to come home initially. When he did finally come home, I was having an anxiety attack and he sneered and said, "Just go to the hospital then." He did a line of drugs and went back out with his friends to a strip club. He came back at 3 a.m. and started yelling at me for almost an hour. As I was in bed, shaking and crying, begging him to let me sleep, he kept ripping the covers off, telling me what a horrible person I was. What a lovely man. I just disassociated the day of the wedding. I was too embarrassed to call it off. The day after the wedding, he did the same thing. And Monday morning, I packed up my dog and my valuables and left. Devastating. Edit to add this bonus. My ex had hired pole dancers dressed as unicorns to perform at our wedding reception. What? And spent about $800 on drugs the previous month or so. And by the way, he did blow once in the 3.5 years we were dating, so not a regular thing. Well, once as far as you know, let's be realistic here. Then he had the audacity to say he couldn't afford to buy me a ring. Well, is that audacious or is it just a fact? If you're spending that much on coke, then ring's not really that important. And last but not least, my sister's wedding happened 2 weeks before the wedding. During his bachelor party, she flew to a different state to get closure from an ex. The groom wasn't much better though. He disappeared during the bachelor party and was found out to be trying to hook up with girls and do drugs as one last hurrah before getting married. Now that I will never understand, by the way. If you're on your stag do or your hen party and you think, oh, one more big night where I just do a load of drugs and get with random people before I'm tied down to somebody for the rest of my life, as in looking at it as a negative thing, then you probably shouldn't be getting married to that person / at all. Nonetheless, my boyfriend at the time was part of the bachelor party, and he told me when they went back to the hotel room to look for the groom, they found evidence of a hooker and drugs. The groom was skipping everywhere and getting turned down left and right, so I guess he figured he's got to get what he can. After everything was found out, my mum tried convincing my sister to still do the wedding and just get couples counselling. Obviously, that didn't go over well. My dad figured he paid for the wedding and caterer, so we still had a party at the venue We just didn't invite my sister. My boyfriend, who is now my husband, called it the non-wedding when referencing it. So fun. They dated for 4 years and were engaged for 2, so 6 years total. Less than a year later, he married a girl who he was cheating on my sister with during the entire time they were engaged. Gave the girl the same engagement ring my sister wore for 2 years. That is tacky. My sister ended up marrying the ex she flew to a different state for. Well, maybe that was just meant to be. I mean, to be fair, if you are trying to get closure from an ex when you're about to be married and your fiance is on his stag do, again, probably not the right time to get married or the right person to get married to. And I think it worked out for the best. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Those were Reddit's best answers to the question. People who left their partner the day of the wedding, what happened? And guys, if you know any stories, maybe this has happened to you, maybe you've done it yourself. If so, crazy. Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know, do you want to see more Ask Reddit episodes back on the channel? It's been ages since I've done one, so I thought I'll bring it back. And what better question to ask? Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more, and I'll catch you on the next one.